Good morning to all of you. Today we are going to discuss another important topic related to esophagus, and that is corrosive injury to esophagus, followed by drug induced injury to esophagus. In the previous interaction, we have already discussed the surgical management of GORD, followed by complications of GORD, including Barrett's esophagus. Now, in this interaction, we'll go with corrosive injury followed by drug induced injury to esophagus. Now, let's start with corrosive injury to the esophagus. The lye or caustic soda, that is sodium hydroxide, is an example of an alkali. Another corrosive example is sulfuric acid. Now these two chemicals, they are responsible for most of the corrosive injury usually seen in hospitals related to esophageal injury. And both of the corrosives or any one of them that may be taken in attempted suicide, sometimes even a child can accidentally ingest any one of them, especially if the parents they are storing the corrosives in bottles labeled as beverages. Now, any patient suffering from this corrosive injury, they usually present with features suggestive of severe damage to mouth, pharynx, larynx, esophagus, and stomach up to the pyloric sphincter area. Now, what are the factors that determine the extent of damage due to these corrosive? There are three important factors. First of all, type of agent, whether the patient has ingested an alkali or an acid. What is the concentration of the ingested material and how much volume the patient has ingested. So these three important things, the type of agent, the concentration and volume. These three things decide the extent of damage during corrosive injury to esophagus or stomach. Now let's first of all quickly go through the alkalis. The sodium hydroxide, one of the example. These alkalis, they are relatively, when compared to other liquids, they're odorless and tasteless. So any patient, he or she is more likely to ingest a large volume because these alkalis are odorless and tasteless. And these liquids, they are going to liquefy the fat and they will cause saponification of fats. The patient will present as usually dehydrated. All the features of dehydration will be there. And later on, these alkalis they cause thrombosis of blood vessels and finally leading to fibrous scarring of the esophagus. Whereas the acid, if the type of agent is acid, the acid they usually cause coagulative necrosis with a scar formation. There is one advantage of this coagulative necrosis, that this coagulant that is going to limit the penetration of this acid to deeper layers of esophageal wall. So lesser damage to esophagus when compared to an alkali. But it causes more gastric damage than alkalis. Why? Because of the induction of severe pylorospasm. Very intense pylorospasm is there. And so that the ingested acid is being collected inside the antrum part of the stomach. So more gastric damage is caused by acid when compared to alkali. One thing is very important. Any patient who is suffering from this corrosive injury, whether due to alkali or acid, usually they present with dysphagia or dynophagia and other associated symptoms. But these symptoms and signs, they are unreliable in predicting the severity of injury to the esophagus due to these corrosives. So we cannot predict whether the injury is severe or a minor variety injury is there. So what to do? The answer is endoscopy. And this is a very important step in the management of any patient presenting with corrosive injury. The early endoscopy by an experienced endoscopist, this is very important in the management of corrosive injury to the esophagus. In this endoscopy, our aim is to inspect the whole of the esophagus very carefully, not to perforate it while doing endoscopy. And up to what level? Up to the level of pyloric sphincter. Whole of the stomach along with the esophagus should be inspected. Now, what could be the possible endoscopic findings in corrosive injury to esophagus? If the injury is minor, severity is less, then only edema of esophageal mucosa will be there. And usually this condition rapidly resolves with no associated complications later on. So these patients can be safely allowed orally very early. So this is the importance of doing endoscopy in these type of patients. But yes, one thing is very important. An endoscopist should be a very skilled one, experienced one. Another finding could be deep ulcers, presence of deep ulcers with a grey or black scar. If that is there, it is suggestive of most severe lesions with greatest risk of perforation. These type of lesions, they are suggestive of that this patient is more likely to have a perforated esophagus. So in these group of patients where there is severe injuries there, prefer not to allow orally and go with a feeding jejunostomy. And feeding jejunostomy should be working until the patient can swallow saliva satisfactorily. Then only you can allow the patient orally. Feeding jejunostomy, I think all of you know that we are going to make an opening in the jejunum part, and that feeding tube is coming out through the abdomen, and these type of patients can be given nutrition through this feeding tube that is directly opening into the jejunum temporarily. Another important thing is there is usually widespread use of broad spectrum antibiotics and steroids in this group of patients, but this habit or this management plan is not supported by evidence. Regular endoscopic examination is very important, and it is the best way to assess the esophageal or gastric stricture development later on during the follow-up period. And it has been seen that in 50% of the patients with extensive mucosal damage, they usually develop significant stricture in the esophagus or in the stomach. What is the role and timing of repeat endoscopies with or without dilatation in these type of patients? This is very controversial. According to the need, we can proceed. Sometimes when the corrosive injury is very severe, there are two important indications for emergency surgery in these type of patients, and these indications are bleeding, and second indication is perforation of the esophagus. Only these two indications are there. We are going to opt for emergency surgery in these type of patients. Otherwise, elective esophageal resection should be postponed for at least 3 to 4 months till the fibrotic phase is established. So don't be in a fast mode. In these type of patients, if there is no bleeding or no perforation of esophagus, at least give 3 to 4 months for fibrosis to take place, then only decide what to do surgically. The esophageal replacement is required when the patient is having very long, or if the patient is having multiple strictures and almost all of the esophagus is involved. In that particular patient, we require esophageal replacement. So in this case, resection of esophagus is required, although it is difficult because of periesophageal inflammation. But yes, this is required. And so after resection of esophagus, the replacement conduit is colon. Why colon? Why not stomach? Because in corrosive injury of esophagus, usually the esophageal damage is associated with gastric damage. So colon is always preferred as replacement conduit in these type of patients. No question of using stomach. Now, another important question is whether to remove the damaged esophagus or just do a bypass and just leave that damaged esophagus in situ. Now, there are two schools of thoughts. The one is saying resect that damaged part and replace it with colon. Why? Because they are saying that there is risk of developing carcinoma in damaged esophagus and stomach, and lifetime risk is although less than 5%, but if we are going to leave that damaged esophagus, the patient is having a lifetime risk less than 5% to develop a carcinoma in that part. So better to resect and replace it with colon. First school of thought. Now the second school of thought, they are saying just we should prefer esophageal bypass, leave that part there and just go with endoscopic surveillance. Why this is preferably it should be done? Because usually the removal of badly damaged esophagus from a scarred mediastinum, sometimes it could be hazardous, associated with lethal complications. So we are having two options according to the clinical scenario. We can choose any one of them. So finally, as far as the management of corrosive injury to the esophagus is concerned, this is the take-home message. Early, skilled endoscopy is essential and recommended. And with the help of these endoscopic sessions, we know the findings We decide whether it is minor injury or severe injury, and accordingly we decide the surgical or medical management. Obviously, medical management or conservative management in minor injuries, whereas in severe injuries, usually surgical intervention is required. Now, associated, the second topic in this interaction is drug induced injury to esophagus. There are various drugs, but the most commonly the various antibiotics and the preparations containing potassium chloride given for hyperkalemia, paralytic ileus. So these group of drugs, they usually damage the esophagus. Why they're damaging to the esophagus? Because the tablets that may stay for a longer time, especially if taken without an adequate drink or liquid. If the patient is not taking enough liquid for taking tablets, they usually stay there and they cause damage to the esophagus. And in acute injury of the esophagus due to drugs, usually the patient present with dysphagia, difficulty in swallowing, and odynophagia, the painful swallowing. And these two clinical scenarios, they may be very severe in drug induced injury along with pain. Now, what is the management of drug induced injury to the esophagus? Usually in these type of patient, the inflammation usually resolves within 14 to 21 days, or let's say in 3 weeks. Usually the inflammation resolves. No specific treatment is required. Just give appropriate nutritional support to the patient, other conservative support, avoid taking those drugs, the suspected drugs. And usually these type of patients, if the injury is severe, this is associated with development of esophageal stricture in later on the follow-up period. The strictures may develop. One of the complication of this esophageal injury due to drugs, and we have already, the therapeutic dilatation of strictures can be done later on if discovered. And that's all for today. If you are having any question or any query, you can just write your questions here. I will try to answer them after finishing the esophagus part. Collectively, we'll discuss your queries. Thank you.